Nyeba gunle namdole shing yende gunge gembambo semje gunge nye jibu tamje kenla gujayense. So, regarding to our Dharma discussion about view, meditation and conduct, there are some short questions, and I will attempt to answer, to explain. So I made the question short, but I think if I explain the subject, I hope you will understand. So the first question is it okay to start our Dharma practice with a vague view? Means, is it okay to start our practice without having this very clear conviction of view? Yes, in fact, when we practice Dharma, we have to start with this vague view, because it is impossible to have a complete, clear view from the beginning. But the point is that this view has to have some sort of authentications. So, for example, this view should come from a little bit of studying sutra or commentaries, or let's say this view is not just your own idea. It is your understanding, but this understanding should have some authentic sources, such as Buddha's teachings, such as the commentaries, shastras, or such as coming from our guru or masters, his realizations. So it's important to have a certain kind of background to that. So we have this through our study, contemplation and the meditation. This is the process how our view sort of evolves from the vague views to the clear view. And so it is said that there's three obscurations, so to speak, or reasons why we don't have this clear view. The first obscuration is not knowing the reality, how things exist, not knowing who we are, and not knowing what I really want, all these kind of things, and becoming a slave of environment, conditions, habits, and so on and so forth. So first thing, we have to study a little bit about how things appear to us, how things are, what is the difference, and how our environment affects us, how our habitual patterns affects our daily life, and so on and so forth. So when you study a little bit, you will have certain kind of conviction, what is real, what is confusion, and so forth. So this will help you. We call it the three wisdoms. The wisdom that comes from study, wisdom that comes from meditation, contemplation, and wisdom that comes from meditation. So after the studying is only not sufficient, because we might study, we might collect a lot of information, but still we will have a lot of doubts. So the second obscuration is doubt. Because when you study, you are just collecting the information, but you are not trying to put them together. And when you contemplate, then you will become more clear from this vagueness. Still there's no realization, but you have this quite a good speculation view, so to speak. Oh, maybe this is this is that, this is where I wanted to go, and this is what are the obscurations, and so on and so forth. And this contemplation is important. And contemplation is almost this transition between the understanding and the realizations. Because sometimes there's a big gap. You understand something, but your mind still not realize it. So this contemplation is very, very important. It joins, it acts as a transmitter, how our understanding turns into our realization. So that's why when we do this analytical meditation, is very, very helpful to our realization. So contemplation will eliminate this second obscuration of doubt. You have lots of informations, but you don't know how to put them together. So it helps you to put them together and see a picture. And after the contemplation, if you start, if you still continue practicing meditation, and then as a result of meditation, so the third obscuration is that you have some kind of understanding, some experience, but not still not very clear, like 100%. And as a result of long-term meditation, realization will happen. This experience will turn into the realization, and this you can say real view, the 100% view. But it is not only a view, but it's also as a result. So it's okay to start with the vague view or understanding view, but it's important to polish that, and then the realization view will happen as a result. And to do that, we have to go through the studying, contemplation, and meditation. And I think one another question related to this is also that should I be very clear and then only start meditating, or I just meditate and see what happens. Again, this comes back to this. You can be quite clear, you can have a quite a clear understanding, or you can have a quite clear realization. That's two things. So you can have a quite a clear understanding and then practice. That is also a good right way to do it. But then if you think clear realization, then that's difficult. So you practice first with the clear understanding, and as a result you will have a clear realization. So it depends on what do we mean by this clear. If you're talking about the realization clear, then it's impossible to have before the practice. It will happen as a result of that. But if you're talking about maybe not like 100% clear, but having like when you are driving, it's not completely like blocked. You have to have some kind of view, where you're going. So understanding view is important. You have to have that, otherwise we cannot meditate. But the realization view will come later. So there's a two approach. Sometimes we say practice first and the view will happen. Yeah. So we call it the finding the view from the meditation. This is we are talking about the realization view, not the understanding view. Understanding view has to have. It's must. And sometimes we say that you have a view, then only you meditate. It goes vice versa. And that means you have to have an understanding view, then only you have something to be meditated on. So we use these two different words, but it has a little bit different meaning. And when we say starting view to meditation, we are talking about the understanding view. You have to have that, otherwise we cannot go. But when we say practice first and the view will occur as a result, we are talking about this realization view. So if you practice well, as a result of that practice, realization will happen. So maybe you can put it like this: understanding view, meditation, realization view. In that way. And the second question, you said that imitating Dhamma is danger, but isn't imitating Dhamma better than not practicing? Yes, definitely. Again, we have to start imitating, and eventually we will know that our practice will become genuine. So this between this imitating and genuine Dharma. Of course, you cannot imitate all the way. You can start with it, and then eventually you have to transform that imitation to the real Dharma. But where we are talking about imitating Dhamma in this context means we are not just like imitating, but many times we practice Dhamma, but somehow with a worldly concern, intention. That's what we're focusing on. That was the point. So you might sound like you're practicing, or you might seem like, or we will think that I'm practicing, but then maybe somewhere inside, for the name, for the power, or for the temporarily sensations, whatever. So this is what I'm trying to say, that our Dharma should not be kind of wrapped inside the worldly concern, the 8 worldly concern. This is what the main point of that, saying that imitation Dharma It's not a genuine Dharma. But in generally speaking, yes, of course, we all has to somehow learn all the system, do it, and then eventually, we polish ourselves, and then it becomes genuine as in the result of practice imitation. So that's and of course, practicing imitating is much better than not practicing at all. And we also talk a lot about the accumulation of merit by just hearing one word or reciting one verse. It's imitating, but it also accumulates a lot of merit. The main reason is that as long as you are not genuine within yourself, your practice, and even you push, even you imitate, there won't be any transformation. That's a problem. So, of course, we will accumulate some merit, but then there won't be much transformation, inner transformation, and which means that Dharma still is not really effective, and that's a problem. So, yes, imitation Dharma is okay, but it is important eventually we should transform that into the genuine Dharma as soon as possible. But then also the word imitation here was more focusing on the not polluted by the worldly concerns where we practice Dharma. And the third question is how to practice loving kindness for oneself. I think the question is more like no, it's same. There's not much different how you practice loving kindness to oneself and how you practice loving kindness for everyone. There's not much different. We can use the same technique. The only different thing is that I think that we have a difficulty to differentiate between this very subtle, like self-loving and ego. So then we get, am I doing ego or am I practicing self-loving, I think to make it easy, the moment you think that moment you have this strong dualistic between me and somebody else, and you do something, okay, it's me and because of I should do this, it's mine because of that I should do this. So when you have this sense of only me, only I can do this, or only for me, that is ego. So let's say if you practice, for example, the four immeasurable practice, and then when we practice things like, oh, may all beings possess happiness and cause of happiness, right? And when you feel that everyone is same, and because of that, everyone, including myself, everyone else possesses happiness, including myself, and I also want to be happy. It's very natural. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you have that kind of mentality, whenever you think about like happiness, if you can think as a whole, everyone should or must have a happiness. And this is not ego. This is more like even I also possess, I also have a right to be happy, including myself. So me as well, you know, that will be more like self-loving kindness, not separating too much from my suffering, me also, because I deserve happiness, everyone deserves happiness, it's equal. That is self-loving. And then I wanted to free from suffering, all those for immaterial purpose, or all the other practices we can do. So so to check yourself, if you say think only me, my suffering, then there's an ego. Yeah. Want to be free from suffering, me as well, may me be able to free from suffering, may me be, as well like the all other sentient beings. And that's self-loving kindness, when you don't make big differences between your suffering and other suffering. And in actually, if you just observe yourself as a second person, you work very hard, right? For whom? For yourself. So this, even if you just look at how physically, mentally, verbally, in 24 hours, how hard we work for ourselves, is something to be, something deserve to be compassionate, to be like, patted, so to speak. So you can just observe yourself and see how hard he or she works, and that's, you have to be compassionate to that person, working so hard for you, fighting for you, crying for you, wholeheartedly. And to do that, I think you can generally practice this loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joyful practice to oneself. And you can practice it in some difficult situations. So let's say if I'm going through certain suffering, then I can more focus on the compassion, I think, or may I be free from that suffering, right? And if you are having some kind of joy, and then you can focus on, oh, it's so good, you can practice your self-appreciation and self-gratitude, practicing like the joyfulness. And so something that you can practice. Now the point here is that not having this very strong duality between me, my, and others suffering, my suffering, others' happiness, my happiness, and trying to reduce that. And when you do that, okay, so I think the one question is that 3 practical acts of loving kindness in this situation. I think in this nowadays, we are going through this illness situations. I think first of all, it's very important to have a positive thought. As we said that of course accepting impermanent and all those things, definitely. So we have to look a little bit for noble truth, forces, So there's nothing is happening very dramatic. It is maybe happening a little bit in overwhelming way, but it is how life, compounded phenomena works. I think there's main two things that we have to be careful, is that not being overwhelmed by the fear. We can say attachment and aversion. Definitely, this is always two strongest emotions, and the more you have this, you will have more anxiety, more panic. So probably, first of all, not asking too much questions like why this is happening, why this is my country, why it is to me, yeah? It's not like that. So if you go too far from the history, that's just making more suffering. So whatever happens, happens. Acceptance is very important. Number one. Not rejecting this, instead of accepting, because we are human beings, we are compounded phenomena, and as Buddha said, it's impermanent and comes, and getting old, getting sick, dying is a very part of our life. It's not something very unusual is happening. It's just happening in very big scale. That's the only difference. Maybe if there's one person who's never died, and it could be very shocking, we should worry about what happened with Buddha's teaching. So now, for example, what I'm trying to say is that if you think too much about the present situation, and then more you think it, there will be more aversion. If you focus too much, because you only see all this suffering, something's going wrong, this is happening, or that is happening, so much negativity is there. And of course, as our mind have this habit to exaggerate it, right? So not just focusing in the present situation and just looking at the negativities and having this aversion to get rid out or something, So not having aversion toward the present situation. And instead of thinking too much about, oh, I cannot do this, or I cannot do that, or this out of control, and really more focusing on what we can do. For example, listening to the whatever it says, doctor says, or something, all this. So there's so many things we can do. Second thing, I think, since people who have family and job and all this, maybe they worry about the future. So this is attachment. So because of the too much attachment to the future, it will create anxiety. Oh, maybe I will lose job, or maybe I will lose this, or this will happen, that will happen. So not going too much into the future is also not good. Of course, there will be some problem, but then all the problem will have some solution. This is also impermanent. It's going to be changed. It's not going to be always like that. So not focusing too much on the present situations negative, and having a very attachment and saying like, I want to get rid of it, I want to get rid of it, That's because it doesn't work. It creates more anxiety. And as well as not thinking too far about my children, my grandchildren, all this, and then worrying about now, oh, I will do this and I lose job. Because when you think one negative, it will multiply into all these irrational, irrelevant negative fears. So you have to stop and try to bring your mind in the present, whatever you're doing, instead of focusing on what you cannot do, focusing on what you can do. And I think the three things we can do, we can call it body, speech and mind, behavior or action. But maybe let's say, so first thing is like, there might be physical things, we can do. It depends on our lifestyle, who we are. Maybe you have some resources, maybe you have some money, maybe you have some skills, maybe you are already doing something. So if there's some kind of physical you can do, and try to focus on that, to do it, right? This is one thing. Sharing, exchanging, service, whatever we are doing. And then the physically helping people. And the second thing is like through speech, we can do a lot, because maybe this is a difficult time, so we can talk, we can share to each other, you know. We can share the information, we can share the love to each other. Maybe there are people normally you don't talk, or maybe you rarely talk. Call them, say them how are you, how are you do, and if you have any kind of special skills, or if you have any kind of special information, try to share as much as you can through the speech. And not only that, but maybe there are people who wants to say something and there's nobody to listen, and give your time, energy to listen to them, right? And sometimes listening is also very important in such a situation. And then also it's sharing with family, friends, enemies, and maybe we are saying that I'm not going to send him message, I'm not going to call him because he didn't call me, and he's also thinking the same, yeah? So you have to be be the first one, you do it before somebody do it, and talk to them. So this is, I think, something speech we can do. Then of course, like if you have some kind of skills, like for me, maybe this is my speech, sort of, teaching, whatever we call it, sharing. And of course, mentally, there are so many things we can do. I think there are two things. There are many things we can do, but two things. Normally, there's something or some, let's say, enemy or people who you have a strong kind of hatred. Or maybe there are some your friends or something who you have a strong attachment. So we always have these two strong hated and strong attachment. And I think this is good time to contemplate it again, do some reflections. So what it really means. Is it really worth to do that? Sometimes we have this very rigid, inner kind of like mental tumor. Hard to. And it's not like we are living together for 1,000 years, it's like, so is it really worth to be this, hard feeling inside, giving them a saying, thinking, oh, he did to me, or he, it's not, but why? So really valuing the time, and then forgiveness, look at the hatredness, and then maybe they are having problem, maybe they are going through these difficulties, maybe not, but somehow there's no point to just keep that in mind and hate them, it's not, there's no good result for anyone. It just disturbs us, it just creates more and more negative. So what's the point of giving something? So considering these enemies and trying to let go of that hatredness towards those. And also those who are good to us, first of all, who are good to us, you can go through one by one and really appreciate their time with us and their help, and have that appreciation and gratitude towards them. How much they help us, how much they're still helping us, all this whoever is creating these good conditions. But at the same time, you have to be ready to let them go, because that's how impermanent works. You cannot cling on, it doesn't work that way. It's like you're fighting with the reality. You have to do what wholeheartedly, do something, have appreciate, gratitude, and whatever you can do back, do it. But then don't think that I want to hold them, I want to hold them forever, and they has to be good to me forever. That's not going to happen. That's not how compounded phenomena works. And maybe some of our friends, some have all these diseases or are dying. It's important to have this courage to let them go and accept the reality instead of fighting back. Because if you do that, then you are not becoming you're breaking the one Buddhist view, not accepting all compounded phenomena as impermanent. You want them to be permanent. And then of course, wish. It's very important, see, wish. As I was talking about that, it might not seem like powerful because it's not visible, but it is very powerful. So now we talk about the aspiration. So you can, if you are doing some practice, you have to make dedication to those people, especially who are suffering. May they be free from as soon as possible. So these are, I think, then maybe if you have more time, then instead of doing something, focus more on the practice, because this is needed. We need more aspirations, more dedications for oneself to others. And those who pass away, or those who are going to suffer, or those who are suffering, may they be free from their obscurations, may they have a good path during the bardos, and may they have a courage to fight with them, something like that. So you can do so many aspirations as well. So my point was that it's important to, by having this very vivid impermanent situation in front of us, and then through that valuing the attachment and anger, that we have disease inside. So what's the point of that? Being able to let go of both. And then through looking at physically, speech, mind, and seeing how I can use my physical world, speech, verbally, and mentally to do something. So I think these are something you can do. Because everybody has different potential to do, so it's not that you have to have something to give, it's not necessarily, So using your own potential. Okay, so there's one question. It says, so how to make my daily work as a meditation? So this is, I think, as I said before, that it's not that difficult, but it's very effective. That we have to do a mind-body meditation. Remember? So it doesn't really matter what you do. But if you're working, your mind should be working, taking step, right, left, yeah. It's not that you're working and your mind is already in the car, studying. Or you're here and your mind is already in the kitchen or cooking or something like that. So, not letting go mind out of body. Yeah. It's not that difficult. If you're driving, your mind should drive. If you're reading, your mind should also be reading book instead of intellectual fighting, or it's not true, or this is not right, this is not wrong. Yeah. If you're watching TV, watch it 100%. Not instead of you're watching TV, then your mind is already making a narrations. No, that is not true. Oh, here's this, here. It happens, yeah. So mind-body meditation. So it doesn't really matter what you do, because it creates the habit of mind being stable. You might not call it meditation, but it is a meditation. It is a very foundational meditation. It's like when you teach the children, you don't just teach them to write A, B, you just make them to how to hold the pen, yeah? Make the line, yeah? one by one. It's something like that. But not only that, this is a lot of, because imagine that you are in the coffee shop drinking a coffee and you pay a lot of money, not just for a cup of coffee, yeah, but because you pay money because there's nice sofa, because they have nice lighting, they spend a lot of money to how the environment is, yeah. So because of all of that, your coffee becomes very expensive. Because now if you drink coffee thinking, oh, yesterday this happened, then you cannot really taste. Maybe if you pay like 100 rupees, you only taste the 10 rupees of your price of your coffee. You will miss the music, you will miss the light, you will miss the coffee environment. So everything becomes very live when you do that. It doesn't really matter. Even just walking, is interesting because there's a movement, there's a rhythm happening in your body. You can feel that. So probably these are some sort of meditations that you can do without changing your lifestyle, so to speak. Making your daily life as a meditation instead of creating a meditational environment. But of course these are just basics, yeah. And then if you want to do more, you have to do something. But once you have that, then it's easy to meditate, really. Question, because you have already all this pattern, you get used to it. So mind-body meditation is important. And the last question is any recommendation to read about the books about the view. And so I would say that for the general reading, I think the Chosar Khyentse which is What Makes You Not Buddhist. So it is about these four seals, which is very, very important to have a firm foundation Buddhist view. And on top of that, if you wanted to know more about the process of the view, meditation, all the practice, I would suggest to read this, as I was saying, that Mahamudra Aspiration, Mahamudra Aspiration Prayer from the Kamapa, and it's translated and easy, and it is an aspiration prayer, but it is more like very gradually laid out, like manuals, where to start, view, meditation, conduct, everything. So it's very clearly mentioned in there. And maybe it's a little bit, sometimes a little bit too, some words might be too high, but it has this whole package, from the beginning, necessary for the meditation till the result. So you don't have to read all, but you can just read one verse, and focus on that. I was saying that, there's a one verse about view, meditation, and also there are many, many different commentaries to that from many different lamas. So I think if you read that, that will be very good. So what makes you not Buddhist, and the Mahamudra aspiration prayer. I think you can easily find in online. So yeah, I think it's important not to be too attached and not to be too, how to say, aversion towards the situation. This is important, to keep our mind middle, calm, and it also not so not having this hate toward the current situation is important, and also not having too much grasping. I want it to be end today, I want it to be end tomorrow, as soon as possible. When you have too much this attachment, it's also just creates so much pressure in your mind, and it makes much more, it will create more anxiety, more panic. So being balanced between overly attached and overly aversion, anger. Yeah, so I think is it, yeah. Sanam diye tamche sikpa ni tamne ngepe danam tamche ne kega nachi bala trupa sipe solen dowa sho.
By this merit may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara may I free all beings.